Our kickers are crushing it. I mean, 19 fantasy points, 15, 13, 13, 13, 13, 12, 12, 11. That's what some of our top kickers gave us last week. So your tight end 1, your RB2, your wide receiver 2, or your quarterback may not even be playing up to that kind of standard, so kickers win you a week. We're getting into our top 12 kickers this week, and I'm the only fantasy YouTuber who covers kickers on a weekly basis, so make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first guy right here, we've got Mr. Chris Boswell taking on the Baltimore Ravens in Pittsburgh this week. Now with Chris Boswell right here, obviously he's already been a top 2 kicker for all of this year. He's averaging 11.8 fantasy points per game, and he's only missed 1 kick the entire season, both field goals and extra points included, and he's got the leg, 57 yards. With Chris Boswell here, I've been talking about this week. These Ravens-Steelers games are very unique. What they usually are is they're usually who's got the bigger balls. So we're going to both run right at each other, see who ends up getting more physical and can push the other one around and impose their will on the opponent. So I don't really think, honestly, I don't think it's far-fetched that the Steelers don't score a touchdown this week. They may score 1, but they're going to kick a bunch of field goals in this game. I think Boswell's in line for a fantastic game. And at number 2, Kaimi Fairbairn at the Dallas Cowboys this week. Kaimi Fairbairn has been excellent. He's the number 1 kicker on the year this so far. 11.7 fantasy points per game. Now, he's definitely had more of an issue missing kicks. Usually whenever they're like 50 plus yards, it's kind of hit or miss with Kaimi Fairbairn. He missed a big one last week. Like, it happens with Kaimi Fairbairn sometimes. But obviously, he still can hit those big long ones. Like, he's hit a 59-yarder this year. And again, with the matchup against Dallas here, they're not going to have a problem moving the ball. Like, that's going to be 100% clear. They're getting Nico Collins back this week as well. So their top playmaker outside of Joe Mixon is coming back into the lineup. They will have no issue moving the ball against Dallas's horrific, disgraceful defense. And there's going to be some field goals mixed there. I would imagine at least 1 or 2 field goals mixed in there. And the potential of kicking 4 extra points because they could easily score 4 touchdowns in this game. So you make 4 extra points and then add on 2 kicks that are both like 40 yards. Yeah, you're in line for a really good week this week. And Zane Gonzalez at number 3. Zane Gonzalez taking on the Eagles tonight. Now, obviously, we miss Austin Seibert. Austin Seibert was great. But if you actually look at last week, like, you know, the good deal with Washington is that whoever their kicker is, realistically, they're going to have good weeks. Like the 1 week last week that we got with Zane, 11 fantasy points. He had 2 field goal attempts. He made both of them, and he made all 3 extra point attempts as well. So this is the deal with these guys, right? A kicker with the Washington Commanders is in good position either way we go because the Commanders are always going to be consistently getting down there. Now, this Thursday night game makes me a little bit leery of how the Commanders might play in this game, but I wanted to tell you guys this. I've been working on a program that essentially predicts the winner of each game and kind of tells me how the game is going to go. And in the past 2 weeks, I've won 12 matchups. And what the program's telling me this week is that the Commanders are going to end up winning this game right here. So I just do think that with Zane Gonzalez, he's going to end up kicking a bunch. And whether it's field goals or extra points or a little bit of both, I think Zane Gonzalez has another good week this week. Earlier this summer, I went to see a comedian, my favorite comedian, Nate Bargatze. The seats were horrific. I was up in the nosebleeds, basically. And the only reason I got those seats because they were really cheap, but it was also worth going to because he was freaking hilarious. Honestly, I wish I was using SeatGeek back then to get those tickets. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. And honestly, I love the experience of going to an NFL, college game, and even comedy shows. Like, I'm a big comedy guy myself, and SeatGeek has it all. Honestly, I didn't even realize they have more than 70,000 total events on this app. And just so you know that you're getting a killer deal, SeatGeek puts all tickets across the web in one place for you to see. Each ticket's rated on a scale of 1 to 10, with green and red dots, obviously green being good, red being bad. So if you're itching to go to a big game this year, or just want to see your favorite comedian, you're gonna sleep pretty good tonight knowing that SeatGeek has you on this one. Just use my code FANALYST for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. Again, that's $20 off your first deal using my code FANALYST. This is a straight up killer deal, guys. Just make sure to click the link in the description below to download the app. Dropping out to our next tier here, we've got Jake Moody back up here at top 4. I love Jake Moody. He came back right away last week and proved that he's still a top tier kicker in fantasy. Obviously, he missed like a month of football because of an injury, and now he's back taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And in his first week back last week, Jake Moody was awesome once again. 12 fantasy points against the Bucs. I will tell you this though, he kicked six field goals and he missed 3. That's not good. That's not good. Hopefully he can get more accurate this week and kind of get his confidence back a little bit. But it definitely was a problem with him last week. So even though he did miss all those kicks, he still ends up with 12 points. Against the Seattle Seahawks in this division matchup, I just see a lot of opportunities heading his way once again, because they're not going to struggle to move the ball against Seattle's inconsistent defense, even if they've got some players coming back this week. San Fran's got Christian McCaffrey now, so they're going to consistently move the ball against whoever they play. I've got Brandon McManus at number 5 of the Green Bay Packers, taking on the Chicago Bears in Chicago this week. Now with Brandon McManus this week, Brandon McManus, I don't know if people realize this, he's actually been really good in fantasy football as well. Like Brandon McManus at this point, 8.3 fantasy points per game, and he had one down game really against the Detroit Lions where he had 6 fantasy points. And he missed one kick in that game as well. But for the majority of the year like that he's been playing, out of the 3 games, 7 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points. So he's been really good. Now with the Bears defense here, there's a couple different factors to this. Number one, the Bears defense has actually been it's been getting worse since they came out of the bye week. I think their team is just going through a bad culture experience right now. And number 2, Green Bay's coming out of the bye week. I think they're going to be more efficient offensively, moving the ball down the field. So I think Brandon McManus is in line for a good week this week. And then we've got Evan McPherson at number 6 to round this tier out. Evan McPherson at the Los Angeles Chargers. It is a Sunday night game. Now, there's a couple things I liked about this one. McPherson ended up disappointing a little bit last week because he only kicked a couple field goals against the Baltimore Ravens here. So it was just mostly extra point attempts. This week, he's taken on a much tougher defense. The Chargers defense are notorious this year for having low-scoring games. And that's, I think, what exactly we're going to see with the Los Angeles Chargers game this week. I think Cincinnati's offense clearly good enough to get you down there in position. But I think what will happen is the Chargers will put clamps on them and limit their ability to capitalize on red zone trips. That's where Evan McPherson comes in. He's been inconsistent this year as far as missing kicks. That's actually why he's a little bit lower, but I still do think he's a good play inside of tier 2. Dropping down to our next tier right here. Harrison Butker and Tyler Bass. Same matchup. It's Kansas City Buffalo. It's a must-watch game. You got to watch this game because it's going to be awesome to watch. Now, I've kind of debated, like in my head, how this game's going to go. I think the Chiefs are going to win. That's what my program is telling me. I believe it already before I even programmed it in. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. But what I will say about this is this. Harrison Butker has been relatively good since they lost Rashee Rice. Since they lost Rashee Rice back in week 4, he's had 3 double-digit fantasy performances and only 2 that were 4 and 7 points. He's been mostly good in fantasy football. So I automatically think that Kansas City's offense, the way they run this year, is they're going to end up getting down there almost every drive, but they're going to definitely split field goals and extra points. That's why you're seeing the amount of field goals and extra points that he's kicked this year is basically the same. Now, when it comes to Tyler Bass is actually the kicker number 5 on the year. Like, he's actually had a really good last month. 10 fantasy points, 7 fantasy points, 14 and 13. Now, he's missed a couple kicks in there as well, so it's definitely worth noting. But Buffalo is kicking more field goal attempts. So, in this game, Kansas City's defense is brutally tough. I don't think that he's going to kick every single extra point attempt. I think there's going to be field goals in there for these guys. I think both of them are really good plays this week. Definitely inside of the top of this third tier right here. Brandon Aubrey at number 9. It's so sad what we've come to. Actually, I was shocked he made it this high on my list this week because I think the Texans are going to kill him. But what I want to share with is this. They obviously got killed by the Eagles last week as well. But Brandon Aubrey kicks 2 field goals, gets 7 fantasy points. Nothing special, right? But a lot of times, like the 9th ranked guy is not going to get 10 fantasy points. Brandon Aubrey, I think this week versus Houston, the only chance that he's got is if they get him in range. Honestly, all they have to do is get him down to the 40-yard line. He'll be able to hit. Like, it doesn't matter. You get him down there close enough at the 40, he's going to hit a 60-yarder. We know this guy's leg. He's not the problem. It's Dallas's crappy offense. They're horrific. They're a disgrace. So I think they're going to get crushed. Ultimately, I do think that Brandon Aubrey, just with his leg and how much range he has, they'll be able to get him down there once, twice, maybe 3 times in this game to where he could kick long field goal attempts. Dropping down to our last tier right here. Justin Tucker at number 10. Now, obviously I understand. Last week, Justin Tucker showed his age on a national stage. Like, he is definitely not the same guy. He's missed 5 kicks this year. 5. That's not good, man. He's still averaging 9 fantasy points per game, though. And if you actually look at his game log, he's had several double-digit games. He's been mostly good in fantasy. Now, again, what I said with Boswell earlier in this video is these games, they're usually slugfests. They're usually physical games, run-first games, and a lot of times, there's not tons of touchdown scoring. There's usually a game-winning field goal attempt every time these two teams play. So it's just dishonest of me to rank Justin Tucker outside the top 12 just because he's coming off a bad week. I get it. It's not good. He's not the same guy, but he definitely is good enough in these types of spots. I believe I've seen this for years as a Steelers fan. Justin Tucker has kicked a lot of field goal winners on us. Like, he's good. He's still good enough to do that, and I just think this matchup is just calling for kickers to be inside the top 12. And then at number 11, Cam Dicker versus the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday night. You know, Cameron Dicker's been a little bit hit or miss. He's the kicker number 9 this year, 9.6 fantasy points per game. And the last month, he's had really a couple good games. One massive game versus Arizona, but then he's had a bad game against Cleveland, right? You know, Cleveland is the team that they actually ended up hammering in that game. Cincinnati, I don't think it's going to go this way. You know, you look at their several competitive matchups that they've had, he's actually done really well. So I think that this game in a competitive matchup versus Cincinnati, it's not like Cincy's defense is going to stop them from getting down there. They're not putting clamps on the Chargers offense. So I think that he's going to be able to get down there in range, but they'll probably stall out, and then that's where Cam Dicker comes in. It just comes down to can he make the kick or not, but I like the opportunity this week. And then Blake Group, rounding us out at 12. I will tell you this. A lot of the reason he's here is because of my projection this week. I have the Saints actually, the program that I run actually projects the Saints to win this game versus the Cleveland Browns. I could see it. It makes sense. Neither team's very good. But Blake Group, obviously, is in a position to where this offense stinks. Like, this offense is atrocious. I will tell you that for sure. But with Blake Group, he's the kicker number 10 on the year right now. And it's actually been surprising to look at his last 3 games when you go to his game log. 8 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points, 8 fantasy points. That's because the field goals are out of this world. Not out of this world, but they're outscoring the extra point attempts. He's getting down there in range. They're still good enough to get down there in range a couple times a game. And then he ends up kicking because he's actually a really good kicker. He's only missed a couple kicks on the year. He's got the range, and he's going to get down there because Cleveland's defense is getting better. But I do believe New Orleans will take advantage of it a couple times. And I think that Blake Group will be a top 12 kicker this week. So let me know how your lineups start to look this weekend. If you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for this week, click on this video right here.